Dear colleagues, what do Tantra, sacred plants and leeches have in common? Is there anybody who knows the answer? Pretty intriguing, don't you think? Let me help you a little bit. Tantra isn't sex only, sacred plants are not illegal drugs, and leeches, well, you know the leeches. I see some of you are struggling for the answer. I'm here to help you. By the end of my presentation, you will know the answer. Just a few words about me. Besides being a Hirudotherapist, I'm also deeply involved in meditation, which I started to practice some 25 years ago. I'm a graduate of Dr. John Mumford. This is the man who brought traditional Tantra into the West. I also work as a Kriya Tantra yoga teacher in the most reputable yoga school in Slovenia, established and run by Polona Hitchcock-Sepe. And I also work with sacred plants several times in a year. For the beginning, I would like to clarify what Tantra is. When people hear the word Tantra, they usually equate it with sex, and that is far away from true. Swami Satyananda Saraswati, teacher from India, once explained that Tantra is the mother and yoga is the son. Most of the yoga practices that we know today originate in Tantra. Swami Satyananda says that Tantra engages the same principles as yoga, but nevertheless, the Tantra is more versatile since it includes greater range of methods and interests. One of the methods in the huge range of tantric practices is the use of sexual energy for the sake of healing your body and also for your personal development. At the beginning of my meditation experience, I couldn't probably understand why my teacher is explicitly forcing practices where emotional and energetic blocks are very least. But now, when I'm more experienced, I know that she knew perfectly well what she was doing. Maybe it has already happened to you or to your partner that you experienced a sort of heavy feeling during the sexual act or after orgasm. Some people may even start to cry. Such heavy feelings are usually not associated with sex. Nevertheless, such heavy feelings are a normal human reaction. We should all be aware of the fact that we are harboring our traumas and generating energetic blocks that keep adding up during the day, during the months, which might turn into long years of our existence. The explanation for such a reaction is simple and straightforward. While we're making love, we relax, we accumulate more energy, thus making the energetic flow stronger, and eventually the excessive energy might touch secret spots where we harbor those traumas. Suddenly traumas have been released, and what they do? They flow to the surface. In tantric sexuality, the reaction might be even stronger, because one of the ideas of tantric sexuality is to accumulate energy. As we are handling with the stronger energy, chances of getting in touch with energetic and emotional blocks are much higher. Acupuncturists know that when the energetic flow through the meridians is not strong enough, when organs don't get enough energy, that usually leads to certain disease. Being an experienced practitioner, I developed an interesting hobby. I often observe how people who have been involved in Kriya Tantra yoga have changed during all those years. The change can be clearly seen on people's faces. All their behavior changed considerably. And all this due to the tensions that were released from their bodies after being keeping there for so many years. Our patients are usually people who suffer from some certain body imbalance. Some experts believe that 90% of pathologies are psychosomatic. By Dr. John Mumford's definition, chakra is the wheeling vortex of mental energy at the conjunction points of mind and body. We all have conjunction points of body and mind, and of course, chakras are not the only ones. The good news is that through our body, we could influence our mental condition and vice versa. Now, enough about Tantra, let's focus on sacred plants. Shamans all over the world use sacred plants for healing. They include a wide variety of plants from magic mushrooms, cactuses, teas, roots to flowers and many more. Some of those plants are restricted and even prohibited in some countries around the world. To make it clear, it is indisputable fact that some sacred plants can be easily abused. Moreover, you all well know how human nature functions. If something can be abused, it will be abused eventually. This is probably the reason why some sacred plants became prohibited and stigmatized. Unfortunately, on the way to bright, high-tech future, we somehow, somewhere, lost the important knowledge about the plants that had been used in healing processes for centuries. Especially in modern Western society, we have completely forgotten the knowledge about the sacred plants. Instead, we became dependent on pharmacy. We are using antidepressants in enormous quantities, but not only that. We even need psychoanalysts to help us guide our mental life, and psychiatrists to us cope with everyday life. We are being securely guided. We are passionate followers of consumer society. I'm sure you remember that in 300 years of witch hunt, the so-called witches were born on the strikes all over Europe. Who were the witches? They were mostly women, healers, who had a vast knowledge of how to use sacred plants such as mandragora, fly agaric, henbane. Fortunately, not everything is that pessimistic. In distant areas of Amazonia, Siberia, Africa, Australia, the ancient knowledge of healing has not yet been forgotten because it is still used by indigenous nations on a daily basis. Our cyber high-tech society believes that hundreds and thousands of years ago, people were primitive, illiterate, and uneducated. But who was able to build out 150-ton megaliths that look like carefully positioned laser-cut monuments perfectly compiled with the universe that we keep visiting all around the globe? Exactly those people. It is them who nurtured a vast knowledge about the human body, from chakras, meridians to acupuncture pose and energy flow. They certainly knew a great deal about the healing with leeches. We can claim that shamans from all over the world sustain knowledge from ancient times that we usually don't understand anymore. Most of their healing practices are based on releasing mental, emotional, and energetic blocks. During the healing process, shamans often use drums, mantras, or songs, plants, stones, and all sorts of techniques that we clever modern people might see it completely bizarre. Scientists usually ascribe shaman success to the placebo effect, since they can't scientifically explain what exactly is happening in the healing process. I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain how a certain hidden plant called ayahuasca works. Ayahuasca is tea. It is made of two plants, marili and chacrona. Tea is usually prepared by native South Americans. Plants contain DMT and MIO inhibitors. After the tea has been consumed, some unpleasant process starts whirling in your body, escalating to vomiting and diarrhea. However, there is even a more important process going on, namely on mental and energetic level of a person. Also, other effects of ayahuasca can be noticed. Shaking of the body, twisting of limbs, images and unfamiliar feelings from unconsciousness start to haunt you. This clearly indicates where your problems are stuck, which finally leads to the answer what changes should be made in our lives. I remember a session where a man known to be gloomy all the time also participated. During the ayahuasca ceremony, he had an extremely strong reaction. Everybody in the room noticed that something strong was happening to him. In the morning, I was surprised to find out that the facial expression of that man completely changed during the night. He was suddenly all happy and smiling, and there was not a single trace of any tensions on his face. It was clear that during the ceremony, his body tensions were somehow released. Overnight, he turned into a completely different person. Shamans will tell you that he is going through a healing process which will very soon reflect on his emotional and physical level. Hundreds of scientific researches have been carried out to realize what exactly is happening during ayahuasca ceremony. If I sum them a little bit, I can say that the research shows the increase of alpha and theta waves in different brain areas during the ceremony. I quote, "Theta waves tend to prevail in the AAG during drowsiness and light sleep, while alpha waves usually decrease. Alpha waves are indicators of consciousness attention, and since nearly all of our subjects exhibit very high alpha level during the recordings, they could hardly be asleep or even drowsy." I'm sure that you all hold memories of your early day Hirudotherapy practice. Let me share my experience. Once at the beginning of my career, I got a late night call from one of my patients. From what I have heard, I thought that the patient overreacted somehow. Nevertheless, when more and more patients start calling me, I realized that after the Hirudotherapy, temporary emotional imbalance and heavy feelings often occur. Another example. Once I was making a therapy to one of the world famous yoga teacher. During the therapy, he fell asleep. I suddenly noticed that his breathing pattern has changed. When he finished, I asked him if he had fallen asleep, and he said no, I was in Buhashera. Buhashera is an altered state of consciousness which typically appears during the ayahuasca ceremony. During Buhashera, a lot of tensions from our body-mind system could be released. Around 1965, Swami Satyananda introduced a technique called Joga Nidra to Western students. This is a technique where we influence our brain waves. Usually, alpha and theta waves activity in our brains are increased during Yoga Nidra session. Dr. John Mumford, who was his student, said that during the Yoga Nidra, your body is sleeping in the aware state of consciousness. What happens? The brain frequency changes from beta to alpha and theta waves. Exactly the same process is also happening during the ayahuasca ceremony. Only the technique to reach an altered state of consciousness is different. Let me name a few benefits of Yoga Nidra. Deep relaxation of body, mind and personality. We enter into meditative state. Oppressed psychological problems came out into our consciousness. It heals psychosomatic problems, can also help with sleeping disorders, etc. I believe that we Hirudotherapists have all faced situations where our patient fell asleep during the therapy. After the therapy, patients often report that they hadn't fallen asleep, that they were aware of everything, all through we notice all signs of their sleeping. I can conclude that patients often fall into a special state where the frequency of their brain waves change from beta to alpha and theta. That is exactly the same process that is happening during Yoga Nidra. There is a state of deep relaxation where a lot of psychological tensions are released. Even if our patients don't fall asleep, it is obvious that during the therapy they calm down and relax. That again shows that frequency of the brain waves is clearly changed. Sometimes patients report that after the therapy they feel a sort of drunk or drugged. They had all experienced such feelings before, usually due to abuse of alcohol, marijuana or other relaxants. But what is really happening there is the change in their brain frequency. When I talk about Tantra and Ayahuasca, I mentioned that besides noticing the release of the psychological blocks on people's faces, also tensions are released from their body. It somehow sounds familiar to the effects of Hirudotherapy, doesn't it? As Hirudotherapists, we keep noticing the relaxation of tensions on the faces of our patients, week after week, month after month. One of the first things that Dr. Lica Kulitsko, my mentor, told me is that leeches are hermaphrodites who can balance yin and yang principles in our body. Let me introduce an example that proves it. I treated a few female patients, mostly business executives. I would say that because the nature of their work, their male energy was too strong. Traditional China medicine will probably diagnose that yang is predominated. I was observing how some of those women were gradually becoming more and more feminine after each therapy. Not only more feminine, but also less aggressive, less dominant. Their energy completely changed. What is happening here? If women want to be successful in male-dominant business world, women usually must take some male characteristics. But unfortunately, this is not natural for them. Their inborn energy flow is blocked, which of course affects their body-mind system. Such women are not happy, they suffer from the lack of energy, and usually sometime later diseases might occur. But Hirudotherapy can release such blocks. Women report that they feel much better after the therapy. Yes, one of the reasons is because their body has cleaned up due to the therapy, but another reason is that they again got in touch with their feminine energy. Conclusion. We all know that Hirudotherapy influences the lymphatic, nervous, and circulatory system. We all know how Hirudo substances affect our body. But not all researches have been done so far. I'm positive that in the future it would be very interesting to measure what exactly is happening with the frequency of the brain waves during and after leech therapy. When I combine spiritual practice experience with some reacting after the leech therapy, I'm convinced that leeches not only influence on our body level, but surely on mental level too. Even more, I believe that no real healing can be done without releasing tensions or traumas too. At a certain point of history, modern man lost his knowledge of psychological aspects of healing and started to focus on physical process of healing mostly. Isn't it strange that despite knowing that 90% of pathologies are of psychosomatic origin, modern medicine is still trying to cure on the physical level mostly? Do you still remember my questions from the beginning? What do Tantra, sacred plants, and leeches have in common? I promised you the answer, and here it is. Tantra, sacred plants, and leeches, they all influence on our brainwave frequency. Alpha and theta wave frequency lead to deep relaxation, which allows our body-mind system to restore. That intelligence hidden deep inside of ourselves knows perfectly well how a body should function. Dear audience, I share with you my experience with spiritual practices that successfully balance your body and your mind. I believe I also highlighted the overlooked healing process that is happening during and after the leech therapy. In my opinion, it is the change in the brain frequency during and after the leech therapy that can make leeches so superior to other conventional healing practices in curing certain pathologies. Thank you.